how would you grade law enforcement's immediate response to last week's shooting?
Well, I don't give out grades, but I will tell you I've never been more proud of law enforcement. That's the Broward Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Florida State Troopers, Coral Springs, Coconut Creek, Pembroke Pines, Hollywood, and on and on and on. Fort Lauderdale. We were one team in unison. And I thought that law enforcement did an amazing job. Fire too.
Sounds like you're very proud, Sheriff.
I am.
Was there any part of the response that did not go as well as you had wished that will lead you to do anything differently if something like this happens again?
That's such a premature question. I mean, obviously, we're going to look at the actions taken. It'll be reviewed as we did with the airport shooting, and eventually down the road we'll see what we could have done differently, what we could have done better, and those things will be looked at. Like the lessons we learned. One of the key lessons we learned from the airport was the phenomenon of self-dispatching and not allowing deputies and police officers from all over the Tri-County area to just arrive haphazardly. And we had staging areas, and people who went to a staging area, and they were inserted into the mission in a common sense way, and everybody had a job to do, and everybody reported to a specific leader. So those things will come out as we move down the road.
Sheriff BSO had 20 prior calls regarding Nikolas Cruz. What was missed?
I don't know that anything was missed at this point. We're going to, as I said before, we're going to look into every single call for service that we had, how we responded, what we did. If one of our deputies was remiss in their duties, I'll handle it accordingly. But let me be crystal clear. This entire killing, all these 17 people who lost their lives, the ones that are in the hospital and got out of the hospital, this is entirely the fault of an evil killer, a detestable coward who went on a shooting rampage. And we'll go ahead and see how we handled the calls and what we did, but that's where we're at right now.
Sheriff, any new laws needed that could have allowed law enforcement to be more proactive with Cruz that may have allowed them to take him into custody or get a medical evaluation?
Absolutely, without question. We need to immediately, this nation needs to expand our Baker Act laws. I know the Baker Act in Florida, and they go by different names in other states. But specifically in Florida, our Baker Act laws need to be expanded. Not only should a police officer or a clinician or a doctor be able to involuntarily Baker Act a person who's an immediate threat to themselves or someone else like it is now, but if we even have a perceived threat, if a person posts, I want to grow up to be a serial killer, and we see graphic, detestable things on their website or on their social media posts, I believe that we should have the empowerment as police officers to involuntarily Baker Act them and get them psychological testing and get them treated, and hopefully they get better. But as importantly is once they're released, their weapons should not be returned to them. They're not better. If we tear up a knee and we have surgery, we're not better. We just had a successful surgery. Now we have to go into a rehab. These people need to be rehabbed and treated, and it's a process. And they shouldn't be given back their guns 3 days later or even months later. In my opinion, they should have to go at least a year, and some doctor should have to evaluate them and test them and then sign his or her name to it and saying that they've been treated and now their right to bear arms should be reinstituted.
Sheriff, the Parkland kids are in Tallahassee. What do you hope they tell our state lawmakers?
Just what they've been telling me, to keep on keeping on. God bless these young children. They're not going to allow America to stay the same old, same old. And if my generation doesn't get it taken care of, they will. They want common sense gun laws. They're articulate, they're intelligent, they're passionate. They want to be safe in schools. What they're asking for is common sense things that we should be doing for them. We should have more school resource officers on campuses around America. We should have sensible gun laws. There are certain people that shouldn't be around guns. There are certain guns that shouldn't be on the streets of America. And most importantly, our American citizens who suffer from mental illness, my heart goes out to them, and I want them to get better. But while they're being treated, while they're getting better, they shouldn't be around firearms, period.
Sheriff, what would you want them to tell our elected officials in Washington?
Just what I told you. The institute, to change the Baker Act laws, just to do the common sense things, common sense gun control laws. I want them to tell them. I've spoken to them. I've been at their prayer vigils. I've walked Parkland. I know many of them. I've gone to homes where people are sitting shiver, and I want them to, to tell our lawmakers the same things they've been, telling me. Because if we're going to fix America, it's only going to be through our lawmakers.
Sheriff, when you met with President Trump, did you offer him any advice on how to respond to the mass shooting epidemic? What should he do?
I told the president was open-minded. He seemed very engaged and focused on what I had to say. I told him the same things I've told you, and he told me that he's going to go back to Washington, D.C. and talk to his staff and the people he works with and consider all the things I brought up. It was a very positive, meeting, and I want to thank the President and the First Lady for coming down and meeting with my first responders and going to the hospital to talk to, youngsters who were in the hospital, and I hope something great comes out of it.
Sheriff, are you in favor of a ban on assault rifles like the one used in Parkland?
I'm in favor of a ban on fully automatic weapons or any weapon that could be converted. If a weapon has the ability to be converted to anything other than a single shot, I'm against it. I'm against fully automatic weapons. I'm against ghost guns. But most importantly, I'm against people having guns who are criminals, convicted felons, who are on no-fly zones, or who are suffering from mental illnesses. They should never be around a gun of any type.
Sheriff, are you in favor of more guns in schools? Should there be more armed security?
Well, if the armed security comes in the fashion of sworn police officers or deputies, school resource deputies, school resource officers, I'm clearly in favor of that. As far as arming teachers, that's a conversation. There's so many nuances that have to be considered. What is the training going to be like? What are the protocols? Are we going to teach them handgun retention? There are a lot of things that I'd have to, that's a work in progress.
So arming teachers is a very tricky question.
Very, very tricky question.
Sheriff, do you have plans of discussing better security measures in schools and upgrades that might help?
I mean, that should always be done. We should always be reinventing ourselves and questioning. But these are about the cities. We have contract cities, and cities have budgets, and it's not my call to add more deputies to a city. Cities have to pay for them, and they have to find a funding source, whether they're going to raise the millage rate. But as I said to all the elected officials that I've worked with, and I work with some amazing elected officials, we're in the year 2018, and we got to worry about saving lives before we worry about saving money.
Okay, one last question.
Okay.
Has this experience changed you in any personal way? Has it changed the way you look at your job?
No, it's not changed the way I look at my job, and not changed the way I lead. It's taken a piece of me. It's devastating to these families. It's devastating to the children, to the community, and I'll never forget, walking through the crime scene, and besides, my heart being torn for the young children that were victimized by this killer, but saying to myself, I wonder if my triplets sat in that classroom. I wonder if they sat at that desk. It's devastating for Parkland.